The Galactic Council chamber hummed with the nervous energy of 800 species gathered under one dome. Holographic displays showed the war's progress, or rather, its devastating conclusion. The Zrel Dominion, conquerors of 47 star systems, had finally been cornered by the combined might of the Council's forces. Lieutenant Commander Rachel Kovacs stood at attention in the observation gallery, her marine dress blues crisp despite 3 years of continuous deployment. She'd been ordered to attend the surrender ceremony as a representative of humanity's contribution to the war effort. Around her, delegates from peaceful species whispered in their various languages, most filtered through universal translators into comprehensible speech. The humans fought well, a Palaxian diplomat murmured to his companion. For newcomers. Rachel kept her expression neutral. Humanity had joined the Galactic Council only 15 years ago, and their homeworld, Earth, had been classified as a Class 12 Deathworld. One of only 3 in known space. The designation meant exactly what it sounded like, a planet so hostile that merely surviving to sapience was considered remarkable. On the main floor below, the surrender ceremony began. The Zrel commander, General Thokmar, was escorted in by Council peacekeepers. The Zrel were a proud warrior species, standing 7 feet tall with chitinous exoskeletons and 4 arms. They'd built an empire on the principle that might made right. Until they'd met species who disagreed. Council Admiral Velcross, a dignified Altarian with shimmering blue skin, stood at the central podium. General Thokmar, you stand before the Galactic Council to formally surrender your forces and accept terms for peace. Thokmar's mandibles clicked, a gesture Rachel's translator marked as contempt. I stand before cowards and weaklings. You did not defeat the Dominion. You merely inconvenienced us. A ripple of shock ran through the chamber. Admiral Velcross's skin shifted to a darker blue, embarrassment or anger, Rachel wasn't sure. General, the terms are non-negotiable. Your fleet is destroyed. Your colonies have rebelled. Your government has collapsed. Because of them, Thokmar spat, his multifaceted eyes fixing on the human delegation section. The Deathworlders. You let animals into your council, and you wonder why civilization falls. Rachel felt her jaw clench but maintained her composure. She'd heard worse. Much worse. The human contribution to this war effort has been, Velcross began. Barbaric. Thokmar interrupted, his voice amplified across the chamber. They are primitives who still practice violence as recreation. Their planet is a nightmare that breeds monsters. They have no place among civilized species. Admiral Velcross's skin flushed darker. General, you will show respect. I will show nothing to inferior beings. Thokmar turned to the council members. You want to surrender? Fine. But first, let me demonstrate what I think of your Deathworlder pets. He moved with surprising speed for a creature in ceremonial chains. The peacekeepers, trained for diplomatic incidents rather than combat, reacted too slowly. Thokmar's long legs carried him up the gallery stairs in 3 bounds, his 4 arms reaching toward the human delegation. Rachel saw him coming. Every instinct, honed by 3 years of combat, a childhood in Detroit's roughest neighborhoods, and a lifetime on a planet where everything from the weather to the wildlife tried to kill you, screamed at her to move. But she was in dress blues at a diplomatic ceremony. She held her ground. Thokmar's primary hand lashed out, striking her across the face with enough force to snap a Palaxian's neck. Rachel's head snapped to the side. She tasted copper. The chamber fell silent. That, Thokmar announced triumphantly, is what I think of. He never finished the sentence. Rachel's hand had already moved to her belt. Not to the ceremonial saber every Marine officer wore, that would have taken too long. Instead, her fingers found the combat knife hidden in a regulation-approved sheath beneath her jacket. 7 inches of carbon-folded steel, an edge that could split molecules, a design unchanged in its essentials for 10,000 years of human warfare. The blade cleared its sheath in 0.3 seconds. Her arm moved in a precise arc, muscle memory from 1,000 training sessions, from Paris Island to the combat zones of Sector 7. She struck with the efficiency of a species that had practiced killing since before they discovered fire. Thokmar's exoskeleton was designed to resist energy weapons and kinetic impacts. It was not designed to resist a monofilament edge wielded by someone who'd grown up on a planet with 1.0 gravity, breathable atmosphere that didn't require filters, and predators that could kill you if you made a single mistake. The blade passed through the weak point where Thokmar's neck segment met his torso. Every species had them, you just had to know where to look, and continued through with barely any resistance. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. Thokmar's head remained balanced on his shoulders, his expression still locked in triumph. Then physics reasserted itself. The head toppled, hitting the gallery floor with a wet thud. The body followed a second later. Rachel stood perfectly still, blood dripping from her blade, her face already swelling where Thokmar had struck her. 5 seconds had elapsed since the slap. The chamber erupted into chaos. Screaming, shouting, delegates scrambling away from the human section. Security forces rushed in, weapons drawn but uncertain where to aim. Admiral Velcross's voice cut through the pandemonium, amplified to override the noise. Stand down. All forces, stand down. The security teams froze. Velcross descended from the podium with deliberate calm and approached Rachel. She snapped to attention, still holding the bloody knife. Lieutenant Commander Kovacs, Velcross said carefully, his skin cycling through colors Rachel's translator couldn't interpret. Explain your actions. Rachel's voice was steady, professional. Sir, General Thokmar broke free of custody, assaulted a council military officer, and represented a clear and immediate threat to diplomatic personnel. I neutralized the threat using appropriate force as outlined in Council Military Regulation 7-4, Defense of Self and Others. A Palaxian security chief pushed forward. Appropriate force? You decapitated him. Rachel met his eyes. He struck me with killing force. On my world, that blow would have been lethal to most humans. I responded as trained. She paused. Sir, I should mention that I held back. If I'd used full force, I would have also severed his primary arms. I showed restraint. The chamber went very quiet. Admiral Velcross stared at her for a long moment. Then, impossibly, his skin shifted to a color the translator marked as amused respect. You held back. Yes, sir. Rules of engagement for diplomatic venues require minimum necessary force. Minimum necessary, Velcross repeated slowly. He turned to address the chamber. Let this be a lesson to all present. The humans come from Earth, a Class 12 Deathworld where their young are taught to defend themselves before they can properly speak. Where their entertainment includes simulated combat. Where their very evolution was shaped by constant predation and environmental hostility. He gestured to Rachel, still standing at attention with blood on her uniform. Lieutenant Commander Kovacs demonstrated exactly why humanity earned their place on this council. Not because they are barbaric, but because they understand something many of us have forgotten, that peace is a choice, not a weakness. And that those who threaten the peace must face consequences. The Admiral looked down at Thokmar's body. General Thokmar broke council law by assaulting a military officer during a diplomatic proceeding. Lieutenant Commander Kovacs responded within the parameters of council regulations. No charges will be filed. He turned back to Rachel. However, Lieutenant Commander, I must ask, 5 seconds. From slap to result. Rachel allowed herself the smallest hint of a smile, though it hurt her swelling face. Sir, on Earth, we have a saying, talk softly and carry a big stick. I was being diplomatic. She looked at the gathered delegates. If he'd struck a Marine in a combat zone, it would have taken 2 seconds. Velcross's skin shifted again, definite amusement now. Dismissed, Lieutenant Commander. Get that face treated. And clean your blade. As Rachel turned to leave, she heard whispers spreading through the chamber in a dozen languages. The story would spread across the galaxy within hours, the Deathworlder who'd killed a 7-foot warrior in 5 seconds with a knife, at a peace conference, while barely moving from her position of attention. The whispers would leave out one crucial detail, Rachel knew. Something only another human would understand. When Thokmar had slapped her, she'd made a calculation in that split second: submit and dishonor her core, her species, and every human who'd fought in the war, or respond and accept the consequences. For someone raised on Earth, where every day was a battle against a planet that didn't care if you lived or died, the choice had been obvious. She'd chosen to survive. And in doing so, she'd reminded the galaxy of an important truth: Deathworlders didn't earn that title by dying. They earned it by making everything else die first. Behind her, Admiral Velcross addressed the council members still in shock. Now then, let us proceed with the surrender of the remaining Zrel forces. And let us all remember the lesson of this day: never, ever, strike a Deathworlder unless you're prepared for what comes next. Rachel walked out of the chamber, her dress blue stained with alien blood, her face already bruising, and her conscience clear. 5 seconds, she thought. Grandfather would have been proud. He'd always said she was too slow.